The step through, for whatever reason, is one of those moves that always has the internet up in arms. Part of it's just human nature. When we see something that looks strange or weird, it's just natural to feel like it's out of pocket. But the majority of the confusion comes from a very vast misunderstanding of the rules around traveling and the pivot foot. So in today's video of must-have basketball footwork, I'm gonna briefly go over those misconceptions of the rule. And of course, since this is an educational hoop channel, I'm going to show you some options you can train on all levels to do this step through legally. Let's get it. So the first misconception of this rule definitely comes down to your pivot foot when it's established and what you can do with it after the ball is picked up. So let's say I'm dribbling down court and I stop in the paint. Everybody would agree that I have 2 feet on the ground and I haven't chosen a pivot foot yet, right? Because my catch was on 2 feet, no pivot foot was established. So I can step and pivot, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Now the misconception comes down to when the pivot foot lifts and leaves the ground. So according to the rule book, the pivot foot can leave and lift from the ground to make a pass or to shoot, as long as that pivot foot does not come back down before the shot goes up or the pass is made. If you don't understand that, I don't know what to tell you, and I think you just don't like the rule. But anyways, now that you got an understanding of what you can do with your pivot foot after you stop, to shoot, to pass, now let's go into some options you can work, train, and practice that step through in. So for me to learn the basics of the step through, regardless if a player is a post player or a guard, I like to start out in the post with no dribbles, because it can get a little bit confusing once we talk about getting into this off the dribble, which we'll get into next. So we always want to teach a player to catch on 2 feet. We work on catching on 2 feet. That way a pivot foot isn't already established when I catch the ball. Now we want to move our footwork up to the mid post so we can get into a step through off of a post up after an attack. This happens a lot, whether you're a guard or a post. We're not always going to be able to just blow by our defender. Sometimes we have to use those feet to keep ourselves going. So I'm in the mid post, high post, I turn. Now that's a little bit fancy. It's a step through, but it's just a reverse pivot. But the same rule applies. I can lift this pivot as long as I'm going to shoot before I put it back down. Last option out the mid post. Now next up is where it gets really, really tricky. When we're talking about doing our step through after a jump stop, because there's a very fundamental misunderstanding about the jump stop as well. A lot of people think that once you get into a jump stop that you can't step anymore, but that isn't true. Your jump stop counts as your first step. So as soon as you land in a jump stop, you can choose whichever foot you want to then pivot. And we just learned that if we can pivot, then we can also step through. Right now I'm getting to the rim, so it looks simple, but I could also step through to get into my jump shot. Once again, some of those variations look a little strange, but But just because something looks strange, it does not mean that it's against the rules. Have a firm grasp and understanding of the rule book and use it to your advantage. But anyways, this is Nightowl Basketball. I'm Coach Eddie. This is Must Have Basketball Footwork. Until the next time.